And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, once again to the Appalachian Podcast. I'm your host, Billy Riddle. We are back again from LibertyCon up here, Students for Liberty. Is presenting this conference. We're coming in here with another show here. So obviously, you know, there's no Simon, there's no Amos. They're both broke back home. Recovering, I guess, is the best way I can put it. But we are here with my good friend Chip Slate. Chip Slate being libertarian. Also has a booth up here this weekend. Chip, so glad for you to be a big part of this.
It's good to be here in the belly of the beast in D.C. It's good to meet the guests we have on. We just had a great lunch with them and got to hear some great old stories from y'all's time in the Middle East. So I think it's going to be a good show for everybody.
Yeah, this is a little different because although we are up here at LibertyCon, we don't have like LibertyCon guests on right now. It's because I got a couple of buddies I went to Iraq with that I always try and meet up with when I come up here, and it never seems to pan out. But I made it happen this time. It kind of reminds me of a buddy I went to basic with, this Cajun bastard, Travis Matichek. He lives way down there in the swamps. And, you know, he calls me a derogatory hillbilly names, and I call him derogatory Cajun names. But, you know, there for a long time, I would go down to New Orleans almost every other year, and I hit him up every single time. Be like, dude, I'm an hour from your house max. Come hang out. Never would. Every time he'd be like, all right, yeah, I'm coming, and he'd ghost me. But the bastard actually came to my wedding. So last couple of years when we go down to Destin or whatever, since he's not too far, we try and meet up in the middle and stuff. And I want to get him up here, but that's how it is with the military buddies. You hit them up, and you got to be a different type to be in the military. So it's always hard to coordinate with them. And so we're up here in Washington, D.C., obviously. By the way, patreon.com/getontap, while I'm talking about it right now, that's where you can go to subscribe to fund these adventures up here. It's not cheap coming to D.C. D.C. liquor is not cheap. So, you know, by becoming a subscriber, you can help fund these adventures. They'll give you great stories, give you this video effect, and more so putting the Appalachian region out there on an international level. This is just one of the many things we do. So you can also subscribe on X, and you can subscribe to Being Libertarian on X as well.
That's right.
So, you know, everything you're doing is supporting stuff like this. So
we appreciate you.
Yeah, we do. We sincerely do. And so today, you know, as over the years, we've had so many shows featuring like my Iraq buddies, because those are the ones I love the best, because we come on here and they get to tell stories, and my co-hosts get to learn some things about me that aren't so flattering. But, you know, it's important because we've all got, you know, kids. We're going to have kids someday or whatever the case may be. And we're going to listen back and what was my dad doing back then? Or, you know, we haven't had any of the women on yet.
You can tell the kids about your ability to handle a saw. You know, Southerners, you know, it's always important how you handle a saw.
Okay, before we get in that conversation, we got Pooh back here once again. Everybody remembers him. He's been on a couple of shows and told some of the stories. I think one of the big ones up at the wood shop with Bird Herd and all of them. We had Pooh there. Pooh, good to see you again.
You too. Thanks for having me on.
And, of course, Siggy, who you have heard the name Siggy many a times throughout the stories over the years, but it's Eric Siglowski. He's one of my buddies who lives up here close to D.C., and today was the first time I'd seen him in probably close to 20 years. So I've kept in touch with him. We texted. We just hadn't crossed paths. So it was good to see you again. I appreciate the hell out of you because I've been wanting you to come on here for so long now, and now I got the opportunity to do it. Like, I'm tickled pink.
No, yeah, appreciate it. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, you need to take full advantage and tell us all the, you know, spill all the details that we don't know on Billy across seas.
Well, what are the statute of limitations in the military?
there is no limitation.
I'll pick and choose wisely, Billy. At least this time.
I don't have $10,000, so if we're gonna go that route, just know ahead of time. I don't have the funds to. And with inflation and everything, I'm sure that piece of equipment probably costs $35,000 now, and
I don't think the
probably still
then.
as ineffective as it was back then. So yeah, we had a really good lunch hanging out, and y'all kind of got to know him a little bit and understand. Like, Siggy has always been fascinating to me because I was telling you, I said, here we are, like a unit comprised of deep Southwest Virginia coal country people, and then moonshine and hillbillies from like Franklin County, and there were about 4 or 5 people who come from wild outliers, and Siggy was one of those outliers, like, because he was coming from Northern Virginia down, and it just fascinated. It was like, because listening to him speak and kind of as well spoken as he was at that age, I was like, what the hell are you doing in the military hanging out with us slack-jawed hillbilly redneck, MFers? Why did you ever join the military in the first place?
I like how you put that. I get that same reaction a lot. What were you thinking? No, good question. Funny enough, my grandfather on my mother's side, was active duty in the military for 33 years, World War II, Korea. This is going to sound really stupid, especially now. I always had this romantic view of the military. And I think maybe ingrained in that idea of World War II and the patriotism that all the soldiers, sailors, and airmen had going into it, and maybe just the way we're taught, this good versus evil, and it drove me. And so growing up, I moved around the country, but I spent a lot of time in North Carolina. I used to see Army convoys and soldiers, and I thought it was so cool. And that was, to be honest, sounds as dumb as it sounds and maybe generic, but it was just this drive from a patriotism standpoint of I wanted to serve the country, and I thought it looked cool.
Who doesn't like guns?
Exactly. Come to find, and you get to do it for free.
That's right.
And they'll just give anybody an automatic weapon too.
Yeah, which we're going to get into in a minute. But yeah, I mean, just a side story, but I sat across from Lloyd Blankfein, the old CEO of Goldman, and told him just that. I had this conversation, and I said, I get to teach people to shoot stuff and blow shit up, and you kind of can't beat that.
Especially as a kid. I mean, you're coming out of high school, it's like, man, it was appealing for me. Not, I didn't have that drive, but it's still appealing to any, I think, Southern 18-year-old looking at that.
It was wonderful. So the real answer is, how did I end up there? Because I got asked that for 22 years, and even today, people scratch their head about what I was doing. I just wanted to serve. And that was it, and I stumbled upon you guys.
Well, because there's certain type of people in the military that will sit there, and because of their rank, they can do this, whatever, but they will just absolutely insult you to no end, or whatever the case may be, whether there's smoke. Sig is the type of person who can sit there and insult you to no end, and you don't even get mad because you can't even keep up. You don't even know what he's saying to you. Sometimes you're almost done, but like, yeah, I think I'm cool like that too, and the whole time he's just, which kind of leads to, how crazy it was with the group of people we went over there with. Why did you, I don't know if I ever asked you, why did you ever sign up? You were the be all you could be.
Yeah, it was one of those things. I was a third generation kind of guy for me. Grandpa was Okinawa, Dad Vietnam, and then so I was like, well, why not? And then also Dad said, well, you're going to college, but I'm not paying for it. So you had to figure something. Poor country boy from Southwest Virginia, got to figure out a way how to do that, right? And he was right. So I was kind of like Billy here. I'm in the National Guard. What could possibly go wrong when I enlist? And then, September 11th happened when I was in basic training, and it all changed after that.
Everything.
So, yeah.
How wild.
Yeah, that was me. I had signed up. I wasn't in basic quite yet. I'd signed up a month before, and a few months before that, when I got home from college, I picked up a brochure in the student life office as I left out of here. I remember looking at the brochure and thinking to myself, well, damn, Scott Harrison did this. I said, I think I can do it too. Now, mind you, Scott Harrison is a very driven individual. He ended up going SF for quite some time. I don't know if he retired doing SF or not, but he owns part in a brewery out in Vail, Colorado. And every time I see pictures of him, he's either windsurfing in South Africa or down in dude. Mad props, love him to death, so proud of him. I want to get him on the show at some point in time. I'm going to now that we've got the following, we got him, be like, all right, dude, you can't hide from us anymore, asshole. Because I hadn't seen him in 20. Last time I saw him was when we were at Eustis, because he was in our unit as well, or 1710, and he got called up with them right behind us. They ended up not going, but he came to Eustis there before we left, and I hung out with him a bit. But I think that's the last time I'd seen him. And anyway, I picked up the brochure. I just went home and I told my mom, I was like, I think I'm going to join the Army. My grandpa was in the reserves, and I think my other grandpa in the Guard. But, I don't think either went to war, so it wasn't anything like that. And my mom was like, you're crazy. You'll go to war. And I laughed at her. I said, it's the National Guard, and we're at peacetime. That was in May of 2001. And then I signed up. And the thing that pisses me the most about signing up when I did is if I'd have just held out another month and a half, because I did a delayed entry into basic. I wasn't going to basic training until January of 2022. If I'd have just waited another month and a half, my signing bonus would have tripled. They're like, we need idiots. We're going to war. We need idiots.
We need it now.
I got $8,000 and I got $25,000 if I waited just another 2 months. So I mean, hey, I didn't have any, I just did. I talked a bunch of my dumbass friends into going with me, and of course y'all know all of them. We'll talk about them in some of these stories here tonight. But yeah, we all went to 9/11 happened. We called our recruiter. We're like, do we need to go early? Do you need us now? Whatever, let us know. And he's like, no, just stick to the plan or whatever. So we went to basic and got out in May of '02. Then we went to the 2-week camp, and that's kind of where I started hanging out with these guys. I think you were there at that first. You maybe not that one. I know.
I didn't get to the unit till August '01.
Well, then you would have been there because it was September '01
Did
when
I go? I don't know.
This was the AT.
So long.
This was the AT in 2002.
I don't think I went to the
Summer
first
trip.
AT.
We were out there in the GP medium tents for 2
No,
weeks.
I did not go.
Okay, but you were there because
Yeah,
I
you
got
and I
my
were
first
there.
write-up because you ran over something.
Yeah.
They were like, it's your fault for being a passenger. I'm like,
Yeah, you took the blame
what?
for it.
You should have been letting him know. I'm like, I can't tell if he's going to run over something.
Where were you on that one, Billy?
I don't know. Probably had a few to drink, but
I think it was
yeah. So we
asleep.
did
I
that
think he was
AT
asleep,
and then went back to college that one semester. And the start of the next semester, I decided to stay home. I was like, I got this weird feeling we're going somewhere. And then Bird called me February 1st or something, and he's like, hey, we're going to Fort Pickett in a couple days. And it's just a mobile exercise, just 3 days. That's all we're doing. I was like, all right, yeah, This is weird timing, and so I guess we went out there and we did our 3 days, and at the end of it, they looked at us and kind of laughed and said, well, some of y'all are going to be going to Iraq. And they read off our list like a damn bingo card.
Oh, God.
Yeah, we were all going.
Yeah, everyone else.
Everybody was going.
Yeah.
Well, do you remember if you go back and think about it, now that's like a standard SRP thing, but they moved up the dates, right? It was supposed to be like a week later. They moved it up. Should have been our first clue, but we were too dumb. And then the night before they told us, like right off the list, I don't know if you guys remember, we were in like one of the barracks and they're like, all right, if we
Volunteer.
had to go, who would want to go, and write your name on the piece of paper, right? And we're all like, yeah, sure, like whatever. But I laugh now thinking like that had anything to do with
No, it
how our
didn't.
names got on the list.
I know it didn't, because the next day I mentioned to her, and I was like, and I thought it was kind of a noble, honorable thing at the time. I was like, yeah, I said, I guess we all got together, us young guys, and decided to write yes. That way we could at least go together and not get split up. And he was like, yeah. He said it didn't matter. You were going anyway. Every one of y'all.
So was that just a mental exercise? I mean, did they just do that to see how y'all would respond to it?
I don't think they were that smart.
I don't think it was that
No.
smart. I think it's just like, let's play the game.
I
Like,
got
hey,
you.
we'll casually ask.
Okay.
It was also back, memory's slowly coming back to me, but, I remember sitting in a room and, they're reading off, like, the roll call of, like, what, in theory, the unit had as personnel. And it, like, they're reading off people that, like, hadn't been in the military in, like, years. And this is, like, this is pre-9/11, so, like, post 9/11, but pre-invasion. And so, like, the Guard had not refined itself to what it is today. And, like, I think somewhere where the Army was tracking the unit, had, like, 200 people. And there's, like, 100 of us sitting in the room looking at each other, like, So I think some of it is it's just interesting in general, like, I think the personnel management. So I don't think it was, like, this thought exercise of, like, let's see how they do.
Right.
But let's be frank, no one was that smart.
I think it was that smart. Yeah.
Think of, like, hey, can we get enough people to, like, raise their hand and
Right.
we're good to go? But
Gotcha.
I think part of the list was already predetermined.
Right. So where were y'all stationed in Iraq?
So that's I guess how you want to chunk the time. When we got there,
Was it Camp Virginia or New York? We were
started-
in Kuwait at the very beginning.
Virginia.
Camp
Yeah.
Virginia was our staging ground in Kuwait.
Mm-hmm.
And then, we got tasked to a battalion out of the 82nd and moved across the border with them through some towns. We ended up later, months down the road, being stationed out of Balad, Camp Anaconda, which is technically not in Balad, but next to it, was where we were stationed out of. So.
Yeah, we spent about a month at the original Dogwood
Mm-hmm.
between Kuwait and Balad, which is kind of weird. Well, I think we got
right
a
outside.
hangar. We were in a hangar.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
right outside of Hilla, I believe.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I've got and some massive sand. I've got sandstorm pictures of us three sitting outside of the hangar right after a sandstorm, and I mean, you can't see a foot in front of your face, just sand's blowing everywhere, and yeah, we that was a cool place. I kind of wish we just stayed there the entire time. We were there for maybe about a month or so, and for whatever reason they decided they would move us up to Balad, and that's when we went up there and staked our claim on. It really was Wild West. It's like, all right, we're gonna just stop here. I don't think they went and told anybody on base we were actually there or to process us or put us somewhere. We just decided to take a spot. And it was a good spot.
Part of it is too, like, you got to remember the concept of a base when we got there is loose, right? So you think about strategically, the Army was consolidating, right, into regions in the country. The Anaconda had it was the old Air Force base that the Iraqis used, so it made sense we took it over obviously at some point, leveraged that for our own strategic capabilities. And so yeah, when we got there, I mean, I used the concept of base loosely, like, yeah, we just kind of like plopped ourselves. Now, eventually there was a fence and like security, but there was none of that when we got there. We were just kind of on the outset. Yes, there was more defined internally, but it was not like base like it ended up being when we left. You know, if you remember, there was the active duty unit that showed up. We had been out there for a couple months. You guys remember?
Yeah.
They came next to us.
Yeah, I was
They made it like
taking a piss, and they came out like it was a combat zone.
Yeah.
Oh, they were in the
It was,
what are
yeah.
those carriers? The they look like tanks, but they got wheels. The troop carriers.
Strikers.
Strikers. Yeah, they
yeah.
pulled up in
Striker
strikers,
units, yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you guys remember, yeah, so they showed up like it was a war zone.
Yeah.
Because it probably
Well,
was.
They were all wearing their
They were like
full kit and
they were
gear,
ready to go.
And, you know, we're walking around in short sleeves and
yeah.
our M4 slung over our backs.
If we
I'm
had
pissing
it.
Yeah. I'm pissing in the.
But they
sand.
made it. They lasted like a week. Do you guys remember their MK2 got blown up? They moved the MK2 and it got blown up like the next night again. They just packed up and left.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know where they went, but like they're like, no, we're
They
good,
got
and just like,
scrapped,
And we stayed in that spot for about 7 months, you know.
yeah.
For about 7 months.
But
And that was understood by the unit. We're like, all right, look, we're staying here and dealing with the mortars. As long as y'all can deal with the mortars and the fact that you've only got 2 people between you and a wobbly fence and God knows how many Iraqis that want to charge it at some point in time. Or you can go to the middle of base and salute people and carry weapons everywhere and have pressed uniforms. We said, we'll just stay out here and get mortared. And that's what we did until
Beats the
they finally
alternative.
forced us, like late in December, they finally forced us to move.
Yeah.
But yeah, for the longest time, they called where we were at Mortar Alley because between, I think, July 4th weekend and sometime in whatever 100 days is from there, we got mortared like 120 straight days or something like that.
well, going back to
You wouldn't know that firsthand, would you?
no, yeah. I thought about that.
You know-
I'm sure we're going to get to it, but
We are because I saved your life that night.
well, yeah. Also, karma's a bitch, as Pooh will tell you. I reminded myself about me giving you a hard time earlier in that night. I don't know if you remember. I will come to it, but going back to my thoughts on our leaders at the time and maybe lack of tactical, strategic, forward thinking. It was Mortar Alley because, as I mentioned, it was an airfield, and so right behind where we decided we should live is where all the aircraft were.
The
And
Apache
so,
helicopters were there.
you know, the adversaries are trying to hit the aircraft, which is and by behind us, I mean, like, it's a ways, but, like, there's nothing between us. So, you know, that's what they're aiming for.
So if they're short, they're hitting you.
Yeah, and they're always short
Right.
because they don't
It's
have
long.
They can't walk things in because a lot of the times they would just put their mortar rounds in ice tubes and leave, and that way they would melt and drop, and they wouldn't even be there. So they only got off 1 or 2. But
Yeah, and they're shooting like 80 Mike mortars. They're not going to make it, right? But like, so who do you think are the geniuses that decided to live in between this? You know, so
Hey, we'll be the moat.
yeah.
You know?
Some of it's like it sounds badass, and some of it's like I think we're just dumb.
yeah, I think so
Like, I
too.
think we just
It was dumb luck.
I think we picked a bad spot. So, anyways, there we are.
Yeah, the first night I remember we got mortared. So in May, we were at Al Assad, and that's when I ripped my ACL and my meniscus. And I limped to the medical tent, and the doctor was like, we need to do x-rays. I'm like, I'm telling you it's not x-rays. If it was a bone, I'd be screaming. It's ligamentational. Don't waste your time. Oh, we're going to do x-rays. So he comes back like 30 minutes later. Well, there's nothing broken. I'm like, no shit. My knee is twice the size that it normally is, though. He gave me Motrin and said, good luck. So, like, Purdue literally had to carry me back to the truck, dickhead, and because I was his gunner that day. And I had nowhere else to go, so I was basically like, if we get attacked, I can't run anywhere. I'm doomed to this truck. Please, let's not die today. So I was the gunner with a torn ACL, and we get back to Dogwood, I think, and I kind of rest on it for a couple of days. I get back to the point to where I can walk again. Honestly speaking, I should have been lifted out of Al Assad and taken to Kuwait and had knee surgery done, which I had done like 5 years later, finally, for a torn meniscus and ACL. But after like 5 days, I could walk on it again. So I was like, hell with it. I don't want to leave these boys and miss all the fun. So fast forward a couple months later, and it's like early July. And that's around the time we were rotating missions. It wasn't every 3 days. It was like us and half a second going down one day and first and half a second coming back. We were just going back and forth. So there was no days off. But we had a very intense Uno game one night.
I need to hear about this. Was it reverse card play, draw two? What happened?
I don't know how it got to the point. But I did something to where Siggy looked at me and called me a fairy.
Oh, no. Okay.
Is it that simple?
Let's lay some context to how we got to where we did, because it was great. It's one of the moments I'll give Billy. I was proud of him. Let me put it that way. And I'll explain in a second. So we're playing Uno, but right before that, Purdue and his infinite wisdom snapped his own arm in half, going back to we're not the brightest gaggle of people to have walked the earth. And so Purdue had broke his arm, and off he went. And, there's like two little peas on the pot over here. And so I think, Billy's like, not in the right mindset. So anyways, we're playing Uno. Billy's over there taking his sweet-ass time. And so I was real into the Boondock Saints. So I had seen it when it first came out in, was that 99? I had it on like VHS, long before it became a cult classic. Mm-hmm. And there's a scene in there where he calls the guy a fairy fuck. So William Dafoe calls his lover, obviously enough, a fairy fuck, which the irony was never lost on me. Anyway, so Billy started like fucking with Billy. We're always fucking around, and like, I'm not really like attuned to people's emotions, so like I don't really notice that Billy's like, not in the best mindset. Like he's over there, it's like his turn, and he's like, I don't know what he's over there contemplating. It's fucking Uno. And so I said, I'll just play a card, you fairy fuck. If you want to know, like, if you got to edit that out, I apologize. But so that is what got said directly to Billy, and Billy gets mad and stands up. Now we're across the table from each other, and this is where I'm proud of Billy, because I'm not knocking Billy, but I was always kind of like, Billy's full of shit. Like, like you're looking at me, I'm not a big dude, so like I'm not terribly opposing. But like the thought of Billy actually coming over and doing anything was like slim to none. So Billy comes over, and he's standing like now next to me, like say it again or whatever, and I'm like, oh, you fairy fuck. And I stand up, and he's like, now keeping my hands are down by my side, because I'm like, there's not a chance on this God's green earth Billy has the balls to swing. I'm proud as shit of him to this day, because hell, he hauled off and hit me. Now he probably regretted it afterwards.
What happened afterwards? Don't leave us there.
Well, so his ACL probably might not have been as bad as it ended up being if it hadn't been for him swinging and hitting me. Right to the ground we go, and now I'm on top of him. Mm-hmm. His leg's like mangled. And the only part I remember from there on is like I just feel two hands going back to Adams. All of a sudden I get lifted in the air and chucked. And Adams had come over and just like, Adams, it's like 6-something, like gigantic, and just like tosses me off Billy like a rag doll. Like, all right, we've had enough of this. Billy's laying on the ground, like just
mangled.
Can't walk now. Like it's not good. All over a game of Uno. That's,
Yeah,
that's how we got there.
Because I badly respected Siggy too, because I knew he was a wrestler and everything like that, and I knew he was sharp. So I was like, all right. So I went over there and he said it, whatever, and I took my shot. And I might have got one more in there, but then he does a wrestling move on me. And normally, had that wrestling move been applied to me, I could have countered it maybe, and we could have had a little skirmish. But what happened is when he hit me, my foot stayed solid and my knee twisted again like it did the first time, and it re-injured it again, and I went straight to the ground, and all of a sudden he's punching the shit out of me in the face, but all I'm screaming is my goddamn knee, it hurts like hell. And I guess that's the time Adam's come and threw him off of me, and I mean, 5 minutes later we were friends again. We understood it, it was never, the story was always funnier than anything to me, but yeah, when I re-injured my knee, I had to miss that mission. Back to where we're at, I had to miss the mission they went down on, and me and I think Hurd stayed back for that one, and Glover as well, and a couple of other people didn't go on that mission, and so I think they had went down, and I stayed up, and it was at that time that I'm pretty sure Hines and Blevins got hit by an IED. Yeah. So, and Hines was one of the guys I went to high school with, played high school football with, college, so we were really close. And, when they told me that happened, they didn't give any other details. So I just went straight down to the phone tent. I was like, I'm going to call his mom. She needs to hear this from me and not somebody else. But just, be ready. I don't know what I said, but in my heart of hearts, he's okay. He's okay. And somebody had said it was worse than that, but in my mind, I didn't think it. And so went down and called his mom or whatever. And then that dumb lieutenant ended up being our lieutenant towards the end. I'm not going to say her name.
Oh,
I'm not going to say her name.
Yeah. All right.
She was right there beside us, and she was like, just reassure, we're going to go down there tomorrow and see him. He was a Dogwood, the original one, is where they medevaced him to or whatever. And I was like, I'm going. I promise you I'll go down there and lay eyes on him, and I'll get back in touch with you. And so I remember we ended up having to go the next day to Dogwood, and it was only a 3-vehicle convoy with all the brass, and then me with a busted-ass knee out of the turret, and Hurd and Bird to the left of me, the brass in front of us. And, oh, by the way, let's go down Rat Irish this day. Let's not go the normal way around Balad and through Abu Ghraib or whatever, the long way we go. Today, that's where all the IEDs are. Y'all need to go Route Irish and I braced for death that day, and fortunately nothing came of it, and, we got down there and I saw him and everything. But, yeah, that's my ACL story. I tore it up, and I could have went home, but I couldn't leave these guys there. I mean, look how pitiful they look. If I wouldn't have been there to save their lives multiple times.
Well, you had more Uno games to win, clearly.
Yeah. Life had bigger plans for me.
You didn't slow play anymore, I'll tell you that much.
I bet not.
You learned that lesson.
You learned a valuable lesson that day.
I think you and Cope both had the same idea. Like, if we hit him, he'll go down and it'll be okay.
Yeah,
both
I remember
regretted
that as well.
Well, the way he said it, he's like, I took my shot. Almost like he knew I had one chance for this to work out good for me, and if it doesn't, it's not going to go well.
No, it's not, because he's going to wrestle the shit out of me,
yeah.
and I don't have those skills. So what he lacked in weight, he made up more for in wrestling skills that I didn't have. So it was like a boxer versus an MMA guy. If you're the boxer and you don't get your punch in there, he's going to probably take you to the ground.
I can just see this scene though. Young Billy over there with his leg cranked behind him, like I broke my knee, man. I can just see it. Oh, that's great.
That's exactly what happened.
I will say, all these years later, I did feel a little bad about what happened to his knee. I'll say that. But
I appreciate that, because honestly, after the skirmish or whatever, Johnson, I remember him for months and months on end. Every time he'd see me, he'd be like, oh, my knee, like insinuating that I faked it for some reason to not get my ass beat. I was like, no, I was more than aware I could get my ass beat, knee or not, but that was a legitimate reason I couldn't fight back. It really, it was, what do you want, Johnson? You saw it, it'll swell up 2 times its normal size.
You deserved it.
He wanted to talk, yeah. Well, I know Pooh, we corrupted him so bad over there. Oh. And I don't know if he's part of it or no, he wasn't. It was me and Casey, but the first podcast I want to say I ever actually recorded was in Iraq. Mm-hmm. Casey and I took like this old radio and put a cassette tape in it and hit record and recorded our voiceovers, and then we would use different scenes from movies to imitate different people in our unit. Like we used Randy Quaid from that one movie. No, that too. A couple scenes from that, but the Not Another Teen Movie or whatever. He was just a drunk. We used him as Hurd. We used the guy from Full Metal Jacket for McDavid. I mean, we would use all these voiceovers.
Joker.
So we were asking questions to our guys, and we'd use their voices, and it was freaking. I mean, you had to do stuff like that over there because we didn't have internet. We weren't getting magazines in there. You had to really, really get creative to pass the boredom.
I'd say you did. So you didn't have consoles over there then? And
No, we did. We had a GameCube that I had a tiny little screen for, and about 5 or 6 of us had a little dynasty
nice.
football season going. But
How about that?
you didn't get to play it very often. You just didn't have the time. We were constantly on missions. I mean, when we weren't on missions, they would say, "Oh, by the way, why don't you Podunk National Guard guys go sit on the guard tower?" And so, we were off missions. 8 hours of our night would be sitting out there on the guard tower, and to say the least, we weren't very equipped for that job. I know a couple of times me and Bateman would come down for the tower and get in the truck to warm up and play chess on the Game Boy.
On the Game Boy.
We were the guys that you see in like James Bond movies, like the Russian guys on the guard tower who are just looking around with their guns, and somebody comes up from behind them and
The first one to
murks
die.
them. That's
Right.
us.
That's it.
That was us. It should have happened.
What you mean to say is you're Pauly Shore in the Army now.
Basically,
That's right.
basically, we had no business being on those guard towers. We had no business. Like, why? They had us out there some days too when we were off, like searching people coming on the post. The guy was like, "Go over and search him." I said, "For what?" He said, "Bombs." I said, "Are you fucking kidding me? Do I look qualified to go search somebody for that kind of stuff? I'm a truck driver."
Nobody was qualified
No.
for any of that.
Right.
anyways,
No,
Just do it.
no, we had an absolute I still think. I mean, I wouldn't trade it for nothing, though, man. We had such good, that's why I could never go back again. I was like, nothing will ever top the time we went. No, it will all be downhill after that. No matter how many more amenities we have or how much easier it gets or the air conditioning we get, nothing would ever top my time I had with y'all. It was like a camping trip, a very long guys'
Sandy
weekend camping trip.
We finally got air conditioning in the fall. It was
Oh yeah, it was like
getting cool.
When it got
November
cold,
or
yeah.
something. Yeah.
They finally
Hey,
bring
right.
it in when it's
Yeah.
cold.
Yeah, and I think it was like late September, and that was the time the temperatures dropped over there, and it got to be in the 40s and 50s most days, a wet, muddy mess everywhere you went. It was insane. But I know
was.
we were talking about mortars earlier, though. I cannot go without bringing this story up, though. So, we at this point in time, I think we had our leadership changed, and I want to say Smallwood and those guys were our platoon sergeants at that point in time. This was kind of late in the game before, probably October, before a couple months before we moved to center post, and we had a meeting that night. And they come and they said, "All right, now this is Smallwood, our platoon leader. Our sergeant. He was like, all right, now they're getting mad at us." Because every time mortars start coming in, nobody's actually getting up and going anywhere. Y'all aren't moving. You're not getting to your spots. You're just sitting there and continuing doing what you're doing. These mortars are serious business. They could come in here and hit us. Y'all really need to start getting up. And the first time you hear one, no matter how far away it is, get to your positions. If you're a gunner, get out front. If you're, not a gunner, get underneath the bunker. That's it. So a couple hours later, we have this little USO tent in the back. It was a pseudo. It wasn't our official one. Official one had the internet and TV and whatever in it. But this was just like our third platoon, and we had a little spot in the back of a tent roped off. We had a TV back there for all of us to watch, and I'll never forget it. We were watching Any Given Sunday, and we were all sitting in there. And at some point in time, about 30, 40 minutes into the movie, Siggy's like, "I'm gonna go back to my bunk and lay in the bed." I'm like, why, man? We're hanging out watching a movie. Don't be a pussy or whatever. And so he ended up sticking around for a little bit longer. And about 30 minutes after that, we're sitting in there, and we hear the mortar land. Boom. Off in the distance. And we all look at each other with the look of, we know what Smallwood just said. What are we going to do? We're not going to do anything. Keep sitting here and watching your movie. It's cool. It's far away. Then we heard the second one walked in, boom, even closer. It was probably like 100 meters away, or 100 yards or something, really, really, really close. All right, maybe we want to get up and go in here now. So we all get up from our position and start running to the opposite side of the room to the tent. And about the time Siggy gets to the flap to get out of the tent, boom, right on top of us.
Oh, gosh.
And so it landed right in the middle, like 10, 15 feet from the door, right where Siggy was at. And we all hit the ground immediately, and we look back up. Siggy's now facing me, and there's blood coming out of his mouth. And I was like, Siggy, you all right? You all right? And Bateman just jumps up really quick and says something like, yeah, he's fine. He just fell down or something, and just runs out the door. And I'm like, no, he's bleeding, dude. And so I kind of picked him up and kind of walked him to the medic tent or whatever. And the mortar had landed right there, and I guess a piece of shrapnel had come, and we're talking about like something the size of a pebble, hit him right in the middle of his gums and his teeth, whatever. And it came so fast, it was like a Louisville Slugger hitting him in the face, and it spun him around and dropped him where he was facing me. Wow. And
I like to kind of add, because this happened to you, but I want to hear your perspective. I was talking on the phone. I happened to get through to my dad that night, who had pulled some time in Vietnam. Automatically knew what that was, because he could hear it on his end, and he's like, "Son, you probably might want to get the cover." I'm like, that's probably a good idea, Dad. How about that? So I'm running, and I got to the tent where you got hit. Now I thought you had died, because I saw you do a backflip like I've never seen before. And now please continue on with what happened, because it happened to you.
Because you got a Purple Heart from it.
Yeah. So I'll give my perspective on it, but I want to back up to a second to like karma. So I don't know if you remember this. We had just come back in from being out for a couple of days, right? And we're eating dinner earlier in the evening, way down the way where they would just drop off like fucking mermites. We didn't have a kit or anything. So we're eating outside. I don't know if you guys remember this. And we started to get mortars daytime, or light still. And you took off running like a smart human being. I want to make this part clear. Like the smartest of the group to get cover. And I remember laughing at you and giving you like, where are you going, you pussy? And off you went. Now let's fast forward a few hours. And the joke was on me. My recollection is not quite as crisp as y'all's for a number of reasons, but I do remember trying to go to bed. And you guys give me a hard time, and I was like, all right, fuck it, fine, I'll stay. And then getting to the door, and it knocked me out. Like, so I woke up, or, it was a split second, it was a flash. Like, it's not like I was out for an hour, but to your point, I didn't realize I'd done like a complete like flip in the air. That makes more sense. But I came to, and I'm just laying on the ground, facing the other direction, staring at them, like, everything's hazy, right? Like I can't hear, like I'm like coming out of it. Like I see blood, but I can't quite make the connection. And I just like chaos has ensued. Somebody, and I don't know if it was Bateman, somebody was like, "Oh, his leg's broken." Probably was. That was Bateman. I think it was Bateman.
That's what it said.
Right.
He said, "He broke his leg and he took off at the door."
He went off the other way. Yeah.
And so it must have been you two came to pick me up. There was some period of time there for like I thought my leg was broken. Like because I was so out of it, and I didn't quite understand what was happening. Like you two were dragging me away, so like in my mind, all I heard was like his leg's fucked up, and like you two are having to carry me out, and so like I thought like my leg was all messed up for the longest time.
You were in a daze. You were definitely
I was out of it.
When I looked in your face after the hit, that's when you were facing me. I was like,
you were in shock.
Damn, he's bleeding. What I just in shock. I picked him up and we had to carry him. I was like, why am I carrying him? His lips busted, not his legs.
So, I was like pretty much out of it. They took us to like the medical tent somewhere on post. They Humveed us, me and Chachki, somewhere. And this is the parts I remember. So I'll never forget the date because it was November 10th because the doctor had been in the Marine Corps. He's like, you know what today is? And I was like, oh, how the fuck would I know? It's like, it's the Marine Corps birthday. And I was like, that was the last thing on my list to address.
Great.
So anyways, they're like plucking out, doing whatever they're doing. And so Chachi is another guy. He had been farther away from the blast. He took a piece in the back. And so they take this little piece out of him. And the doctor goes, I've seen bigger. I just remember looking at Chachi, shoots his head back like, I will fucking kill you, motherfucker.
That's classic.
So anyways,
Imagine that look.
This is where Billy saved my life, or I'll give him that credit. So, you know,
Oh, he saved my life too. It's
yeah,
okay.
you know, he saved everyone.
We'll get to that one too.
But he, you know, they patch us up, send us back, right? Like these are like one, like I wasn't like worthy of getting shipped home, and back in those days, like you weren't anyways. You remember the guy from the 82nd? They like had to staple his head shut early on.
I do remember
And they
that,
just like handed like here's some staple removers, like in like 2 weeks, take them out.
Take him out.
Yeah, they needed bodies. And that's why they didn't
So
even.
my point is like you're
Here's
gonna
some
have to be in a
Neosporin,
bad
buddy.
way to
Yeah.
get out.
Jesus.
So they send us back. You know, so the first night I get back to the unit, I go to bed and lay down, and so we were sleeping in like shipping containers, like Connexes, like you'd see on like a big, you know, big shipping container.
Except for
And-
me, I never slept in them. I always slept in a tent and took my chances with
Yeah.
the mortars. It stunk in that room.
Yeah.
So
And I
Only when
couldn't-
you walked in.
Yeah, I don't say
Ziggy
whose
was in
fault
a
that
different one than I was
Yeah.
stationed. I was stationed in one with special ed, I think.
Oh, well, that explains it.
That's why.
I had a good group. I had like Baker.
Yeah, you were fine.
Anyways, but I couldn't sleep on the bunk. They had built like bunks, but I'd like roll off, so they put a cot in the front for me. Like apparently I was special ed, and so I laid down and like rolled over to where my head was, and in the Connex next to where my head was, I'm not like there was a hole. You guys saw it.
Yeah.
This motherfucking big. And I was like, looked over and I was like, huh. Well, that would have sucked.
So if I hadn't caught him a
that's
pussy that
that's
night
what
and
it
kept
is.
him in there watching
Right.
the movie, he was going to go lay down in his bunk in
Bunk.
his head.
Would have taken that.
Yeah.
shot.
His
Nice.
Purple Heart would also come with a folded flag, probably.
So there's that story. But yeah.
Good for you for giving him shit.
Well, I mean, that's all we always. That's all we ever did is give.
Oh, I'm
like
sure.
we corrupted Pooh so bad because Pooh was such a beautiful soul. You know what I mean? Like straight edge, the kind of guy
Well, he
that
still
you
seems
want
like
your-
a beautiful
No,
soul. What
he
are you
is. He is.
saying?
No, exactly. He's never changed. But there for that couple of months in Iraq. We could have sent him in the wrong direction. I mean, you know, a few times we had corrupted him to the point to where he was just saying some vile and evil things that I don't know if I can repeat. We had rap songs after some of them, but I know this one time, me and Pooh were coming up through Jackson. Jackson was a 2-lane, right?
Yeah.
Tampa was a 6-lane or 4-lane. So we're coming up MSR Jackson, which if you're coming up from the south side of Iraq, past Nasiriyah and that stuff, and you're trying to head to the rest of the country that matters, like
Yes.
up towards Baghdad.
That's where Jessica Lynch was.
Yeah,
at
there's
Cowboys.
a 4 lanes or 6? It was 6 lanes, I believe, wasn't it?
That's 4 lanes.
4 okay, so there's a 4-lane highway like 460, and it goes up, you know, all the way to Baghdad. Well, for about 30 good solid miles outside of Nasiriyah, and before you get to the, you know, what's close to Hilla or whatever it was, it was just 30 miles. The road just didn't exist. It went from 4-lane hard top to
Just
desert.
Yeah.
Just nothing. Just nothing. And then the road just picked back up. We went down that route a couple of times, but I think we decided we'd much rather deal with IEDs and have to deal with bumping that road,
Sure.
you know, for 30 miles. So you would have to get off and get on this little 2-lane, you know, kind of like 58 or whatever, and you know, go through all these cities and whatnot. And at this point in time, it was kind of still early on in the war. You couldn't tell who was what and what was going on or whatever. And at this point in time, I think anybody with an AK was declared to be an enemy combatant. So you would be free to, you know, engage with them. And I was driving this day, and Pooh was my gunner. You know, we'd switch halfway through, and then I would do the gunner, and he would drive. So Pooh was with me this day, and me and him were just, I don't even forgot what we were talking about. We were just having some random stupid conversation. And all of a sudden, you see all these Iraqis running in our direction on the left side, opening fire in AKs. And I've never heard Pooh swear, but he was like, GD, everyone. And he jumps out of there, and he comes back, and he starts training on them and getting ready to drop 3 of them. And he pulls himself back. He was like, that's Iraqi police. I'm like, what the hell are they doing? He was like, they were shooting people stealing tires.
Oh my God.
So these people about lost their lives shooting people trying to steal used tires off the back of a broke down truck. Iraqi police just executing people in the streets. I mean, just the most, and I don't blame Pooh. Like, I mean, because they were in our direction firing. He had every reason, but I think if Pooh would have been anybody else, he might have not been, he might have used better language in that situation, you know, because.
Good judgment,
It was
man.
that was a split-second decision. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess I could have been in hindsight authorized. But it would have been the bad decision too, I think, because we actually ended up turning around on that, if you remember. I don't remember the reason why we turned around, but we went back through that area right after that. But I was thinking that, because all I saw was smoke, and again, it was pretty hairy anyways, and so well, let's go. It's time to
I've got the gun, and it's
it was off safe and halfway pulled, and then that's when I realized who they were. So
yeah, which was good look, because you couldn't tell till you got right up on them with the IP. But they might have not even been Iraqi police.
They probably just had the uniform.
We didn't even know. Yeah, they couldn't have been. But they weren't shooting at us, I think, is the thing we figured out.
That was the whole thing, and the reason why I stopped was they weren't shooting at us. So
yeah, you could tell that split second. But I mean, either way, that's just crazy stuff. Didn't our truck get hit by an IED, and me and you both didn't catch it because we had earphones on and we got reamed out?
We got reamed out.
Yeah, that happened.
Oh, man, I forgot about that. That was early on, though. That was June, July, maybe in the transition of...
I think it might have been earlier than that.
Was that before
we
or
were
after
at
Hines and
Ballard. We were at Ballard.
Before. It was early on when they were still making, like, really simplistic ones, right? They were packing old, like, 155s with, like, ball bearings and shit.
Yeah, because they didn't know the yield, what they needed to do to have that kind
Correct,
of destruction on our convoys.
And before there was outside influences helping make them. But yeah, we were trucking along together, both had headphones in, just paying no attention to the world around us, clearly. We had guns and stuff. It's not like we were asleep, but like, we weren't exactly tuned in with all our senses.
Right.
And yeah, one must have gone off, like the backside of our truck. Like, we just, like, seemingly didn't notice. And who was it? Somebody pulled up next to us.
In a Humvee.
Whoever the convoy commander
Parlier, maybe at the time.
No, that fucking guy shit himself 3 days into the war and didn't come back out. Get the fuck out of here. Talk about, let's just take a sidebar on that. And if he's listening, like, good for him. But do you guys remember when we were training up? And granted, we were a bunch of, like, private and specialist dickheads. He used to be like, I was in Grenada with the 75th and yada yada. Like, he was big time, and like, you guys, you don't even know you're gonna be stirring shit. Now, the irony of this one is I laughed at him and I was like, stirring shit? What the fuck are you talking about? It's 2001. Well, joke was on me there. He wins, but all this big guy talk. And then, do you guys remember when we first went over, and the first set of rounds that first night, we went into the tank factory, and like, Parlay is like on the fucking floor. Like, get the fuck out of here, guy. And like, never went out. You guys, I don't know if you guys like he just never did anything. Just was like, nah, I'm good. I'm just not going to participate. Like,
he was engineering our floors or something.
Yeah, he found some reason that like he had better things to do than like actual man's work.
I remember that.
So anyways, that guy. But yeah, whoever it was pulled up next to us, like, just screaming. And of course, like, it's like, fuck it, like, let's take these out. Fucking livid. Like, we're just like, what's wrong? They were so bad.
I mean, they were just pointing at us, screaming and stuff. Like, what does he want to do? I was like, hell, I don't know. Whatever we need to do. But then we finally got back to base, and they were like,
they were so mad.
Do you know what the hell happened? We're like, yeah, y'all mad at us? They were like, do you know why? I'm like, no. An IED hit the back of your trailer, and none of y'all even knew a thing about it. You just kept,
kept trucking.
I was like, well, then we did our jobs because we kept driving out of the hot zone like we're supposed to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
What did they want you to do? Like, stop?
I have no.
To this day we don't know. We just got blessed out.
I'm not sure is the answer.
Yeah,
we just got yelled at.
Did you even have a radio in your truck at that
No.
time?
Not at that time. No.
There was nothing you could have possibly done.
Yeah, I think that was why Billy and I were just like, I guess was like, no one can talk to us. Let's put headphones in and like go about our day. Clearly we would have. And that was the thing. Like, if I had to shoot somebody, like, I was clearly tuned in. Like, there's a M4 sitting in my lap, M16, because we're the guard. I take that back. Fucking longbows, like idiots. But yeah, like, I don't know what they expected us to do. The only other time that we got cussed out better, that was my favorite, and there was a lot of them, was, you guys remember when we got to back when Scania was still Scania, this early on? You remember, like so active duty, like people that had sense, like, or cared about their own lives, I guess, like, wore their helmets and their vests and all this shit. And we used to just run around in like t-shirts and like baseball hats and like Partly because we were
Franklin
like,
County style. Right?
like our trucks had no armor, our vests had no plates. Like at some point we were like, I don't know who we're pretending to like.
So if we're gonna die, we're gonna be comfortable doing it. You know what I mean? I mean, it's
you would-
fashion statement.
You would pull in, right, and like to get fueled up and be a long line, and like you'd stop the trucks and people get out, and you know everybody's an asshole, but like somebody had come by and like banged on the truck. I don't know, it might have been you, Pooh, to be honest, and because I think Billy, you were in the truck with me when this
I
happened.
remember this happened. I know what you're
And,
saying.
You know, I'm like, and then all of a sudden someone else bangs on the truck, and I went to be like, what the motherfucker? And as it's coming out of my mouth, and I look down out the window, all I see is this shiny major ring on this like Kevlar.
Oh, no.
And I was like, oh, shit. And I'm not exaggerating. It's like this motherfucker levitated into the air. Right? All of a sudden, he's like face level, eye to eye with me, and I'm like, and he is losing his fucking mind. He's like, what the fuck are you doing? Where the fuck is your... Just losing his fucking mind. And so I'm like, oh, no. So now the fun game begins of, where the fuck is your commander? And I was like, well, sir, we don't have one. You know, and it's like, brain cannot comprehend. Like, what the fuck do you mean? Where's your... You know, now he's going down the line, right? Where's anybody that should be in charge of your dumb fucking ass?
That I can complain to.
And he's like, where the fuck's your gear? And I was like, well. And so he's going on. And eventually I'm like, I mean, I have a convoy commander. Go get him. Now, our convoy commander is an E5. He's a sergeant. This is Glover.
The bottom sergeant too, like the very
Yeah. I was
I was gonna say,
lowest.
that's not a real intimidating
Not at
call,
all.
you know, convoy commander.
And it's Glover. And Glover doesn't like me to begin with because he thinks I'm a fucking hotshot
Goof off.
asshole. Like, so now I got to go to this guy is, I mean, this dude is mad. And I'm like, oh, we may have fucked up on this one. So now I got to go to Glover. I'm like, hey, Glover, we got a problem. He's like, what? I'm like, you know, he's in a t-shirt. He's got his boonie hat on that's starched to an inch of its fucking. This thing
God.
is harder than an oak tree. And I'm like, yeah, so there's this major that's really upset. And he's like, what the fuck are you talking about? He goes, yeah, he wants to know why we're not wearing any gear. And he didn't really appreciate the language I used. So, like, he's like, all right, let's go. Like, no sense to, like, maybe we should put blouses on or any type of gear and, like, pretty ourselves up. Nope. I just followed Glover's lead. We go over there and, like, I have enough sense to stand at parade rest, but, like, now he's laying into Glover. Like, what the fuck? And I had to give it to Glover because, like, he could have easily been like, yeah, these fucking idiots. But he was, like, kind of the same thing. Like, I don't know what you want me to do. Like, you know, what unit are you with? And, like, you know, it's just like, best of luck, buddy, finding us. Like, we don't exist here. I got to break this news to you. Ain't nobody going to find us.
We're not on paper.
And it ended with, like, I watched this grown-ass, like, man that's, like, 6'5", like, 250, chiseled, like, just lose his fucking mind. He literally, I think his mind broke. He just fucking walked off. He got so mad, he just, like,
away.
stormed off. And I was like,
We had the ability to do that to people
Oh,
over
man.
there. I mean,
Yeah.
we really were. When I say we need to get everybody together and film all of our stories and break it down on a documentary, like, it's no joke. Like, when we got deployed in the very beginning, most people got weeks and weeks to prepare. We were some podunk National Guard unit that had no business being there, and they're like, oh, y'all got 3 days. Like, we're special forces, you know, like we got bags packed and ready to go. No, we're truck drivers. And, you know, we go to Fort Pickett, we're told 3 days. So then we go and we spend, 2 months training in Fort Houston. So that was a whole nother shit show in itself.
was it 2 months? I thought it was like 4 weeks.
No, it was from
we
it
were
was
there
like
a while.
mid-February
I can't
to April
remember.
or whatever.
Okay.
Do you remember stealing Hurd's truck?
Oh, yeah. He
He let us
loaned
borrow
it to us.
We
He
didn't
just
bring it
didn't
back in
realize
the
how
time
long
allotted.
he was going to loan it to us for. Oh, man, he was mad.
But going back to what your point, what you were talking about, that's what happens when you let conventional forces into something that the way that we were fighting over there, as if a crisp uniform is going to make you a better soldier, as if having a Kevlar in a secured area really matters. And I think it was the mindset, and that was part of kind of the downfall of what happened like right after that, because the rules of engagement, I remember, started changing around that time. And then you could see that, the Iraqis or the insurgents, they would be like, we could probably take more advantage of these guys later on.
Well-
But that's the problem with that mentality is oh, you need to look squared away. Well, looking the part and being the part are two different things. So
I think that's a couple of factors, though, that collided, not discounting your point on the mentality was probably not the best. But if you think about how things changed on the ground, right, if you think about, we went to war, right, we invaded mid-March or whatever it was. The conflict lasted till what? Into April, May, whenever.
Mid-May, I think George Bush did his
and
speech.
if you remember, like if you go back, and I'm not blaming any administration, but because it wasn't the administration's fault, it's Pentagon's fault, but like there was a palpable pause on the battlefield. Like we had a mission, then we declared we won, and then we didn't go anywhere. We just like kind of hung out for a while, and then it was like, oh, I guess now that all our troops are there, we should do something. And okay, I guess we're going to nation build and all that other stuff, which is probably not a bad thing. We probably just should have had a plan for it. So there's kind of a gap. And so going back to the rules of engagement, my kind of belief, and you can debate me on this, is there was a set because we had a set mission. Then we said we won that mission. I guess you could debate that to the end of the time. Then it was like, well, now what do we do while we're here? Okay, well, now we're not going to kill everyone. We need to rebuild the nation, so we need to shift our mindset and change our rules. You can't have guys going out just shooting everybody anymore. We've got to have some set of rules. I think that combined with, if you think about what Iraq was as a nation, and not to dive too deep into history, but conceptually, like, Iraq was a made-up nation. Somewhere along the way, it went, okay, this little circle, it's not really a circle, but you get the idea, you're all the same. Right, and so you had a minority ruling a majority, and then everyone forgets about the Kurds, but whatever, they got treated like shit to begin with. And then it all imploded. We took it all away. Good, bad, or indifferent about Saddam, like it was functioning, and then we took it away. And then that minority is backed by adversaries in Iran, who then notice that there's now this void, right? Like from a power perspective, now you got this power struggle. Yeah, we're trying to orchestrate, but there's this void and this opportunity, right? So going to your point, there's this opportunistic sense from an adversary of ours that goes, how do I undermine the West and the U.S., right, and their goal of nation building? I'll just disrupt it and try to kill them any way I can, right? And so if you think about going back to Alton, the EFPs, right, that was a long progression of advancement in funding and technology just around ideas, nothing else from an adversary's perspective, just in that little silo that we've watched firsthand in 2 years, right? You went from literally they would pick up old 155 rounds, fucking throw ball bearings and nails in them, pack them with a little bit of munitions and hope for the best, to fast forward 2 years, you've got complex EFPs, right, that are getting made by factions out of Iran,
Other countries. Yeah.
right? Funded from there, and it's all because there's this like void of power that you can probably should blame ourselves for, but it's just reality of how we just didn't think through it enough. But couple that with the change in posture, right, on the battlefield, that's what happens. You guys are all looking at me like I'm crazy, which I may be.
I'm just thinking back. It was one of the wildest clip segments we've had on the show in a long time. Like how we articulated that. We gotta start talking Siggy into coming down, getting on the show more often, and just giving his 2 cents on anything in general. Very articulate. I think he's gonna have to become one of our recurring co-hosts. Yeah, he would love the cabin. Come down once a month, hang out, ride 4-wheelers, shoot the cannon, drink some beer, bring the wife, the kid, let them go to the pool, the river, the lake, whatever. We have to make this more often thing.
It was so much simpler though in 2003, 2004. We didn't know. Obviously, we didn't know how it was going to turn out.
Correct.
And really, we were just there for each other at that point in time, and just get through it at this point, yep. Right? Despite what we thought about it politically or not, or even how we felt personally about it, we were just going to be there to get out, and it was that simple.
Yep. 100%. I don't think any of us at the time had enough forethought to even sit and contemplate the geopolitical implications of it, or how we sat in between all that, right?
Right.
Yeah. No, because we were working every single day. When we say that, we were we were just trying to survive. And And I've said this before many times on the show, and I encourage anybody that wants to double check us on this. If you go to Google and just type in 1032nd Transportation Company, Iraq, Washington Post, you can bring up an article. They did a really big article on a unit that will, back what we're saying. That, and it confirms it in that article, 2.4 million man miles is what our company compiled. Now, for anybody that doesn't understand what a man mile is, basically if me and Siggy are riding together in a truck, our mission would be from Balad to Nasiriyah, 300 miles, and he would drive half the way and I would drive the other half, whatever. But between us, that's 300 man miles each. That's 600. On the way back, another 600, between us. So we do 1,200 man miles on a mission. And our company as a whole got 2.4 million man miles, between the invasion and spring of 2004. To put it into perspective, the number 2 unit behind us had 1.4 million man miles. And below that, it even got less and less. So we were a historical unit, like no other unit before us, obviously, because war didn't dictate that kind of travel previously. And nobody after us, because they completely changed protocols after we did what we did. We were the most traveled unit in the history of the United States military in combat operations, out there every single day doing those man miles, every day doing escorts. The days we weren't like doing escorts for our own stuff, they were leasing out our gun trucks to other units, running missions to Tikrit, to Mosul, to Fallujah, to Ramadi. And then for the guys who didn't go those days, they were putting us in guard towers, or they were having us guard Iraqis on post that were coming on and doing like work. So we never, there were active duty units, people that do this for a full-time job, that were sitting around twiddling their thumbs while a Podunk National Guard unit was not only running the missions, but what should have been our time off, we were doing extra work that nobody else was doing. It's really like, it's when you see us and you know us, you know how just bass-ackwards it was, you just, and we brought every swinging dick home. Like, we didn't lose one person in combat, not one. Mm-hmm. We had quite a few lucky breaks, though. Like, there'd be times where you'd be leaving off post and somebody's vehicle would break down 2 seconds outside the gate. And you'd be cussing and losing your mind. Like, damn, I just want to get down to Nasiriyah so we can drink some beer. I don't want to be sitting here on the side of the road outside the post. And a unit would go past us, and an hour later, that unit would take a hit and lose 2 or 3 soldiers to a casualty. Like, that happened so many times I can't even put it into words. That things like that. Or we would,
Well, we know one question I had for you all. In hindsight, it's easy to look back and see our motives in Iraq. That we might not should have been over there. But at the time y'all were there, was there any question in your minds about what you were doing at the time?
I'll go last. I want to hear from you guys this time.
Well, I'll say, at the time, I wasn't very political about things. I was just like, my buddies are here, and that's why I signed the paper at Fort Pickett saying I would volunteer to go, because I prefer me and all my younger buddies go at the same time than be split up. So all my thought was all right, I'm here with my buddies from back home. I got this other set of buddies we've met since we've got in here, and we're all like brothers at this point in time. I don't care about the geopolitics. I just want to get the hell home. That's it. So I had really no thought in it, at the time. I didn't care. Like, I wasn't going to go out there and be a dick to the local population, because the local population helped us out in tremendous ways. They gave us our booze, they gave us our cigarettes, they gave us Freaky on DVDs, if we wanted them. They were capitalists in its purest form. Now, was the money we were giving them going and funding insurgencies against us? Maybe, but you know what? It's a trade-off you're willing to make. So yeah, but a lot of them were really cool and really nice. We'd have conversations with them on the side of the roads, and I was like, I don't want to be mean to these people for the sake of being mean to them. Like, you have to have a certain amount of intimidation to a point. And I think we accomplished that with how we looked going down the road and driving, and everybody was out of a turret, and we looked like we weren't going to be messed with. And our trucks were very unique, and most of the places we went knew our trucks and knew we were very friendly and knew they could sell with us and barter with us and trade with us, so they had no reason to attack us. Actually, if you think back, most of our attacks didn't really occur until we started going to the Al-Assad missions. Either attacks in Balad, north of Baghdad, or going to Al-Assad. Everything in the south was pretty chill back in the day. So, I didn't want to, I was willing to do what I had to do to make it home. and make sure my buddies made it home, but I don't go out there and terrorize people. I mean, they were cool, you know. They gave us what we needed to give us.
Mine was simple like that as well. I was we were 21, 22 years
I
old.
turned
right?
21 over there.
So we're kids. So it didn't go very deep like that
Mm-hmm.
at all. And now that, you know, we're in our 40s plus,
Right.
In hindsight, we look at it. So at the time, what I was thinking and the way I kind of justified it to myself was just looking at the environment that we were in at the time. For me, I said, well, if we're going to fight, might as well fight them here in this country here,
Right.
instead of having that mess come back over across. You know, we got a whole sea between us. So I was like, well, if I'm going to stay and do that pretty crappy guard duty tower, you know, for 8 hours, I'll do that here instead of it happening back home. It was that simple for me. There was nothing else. Later on in life, I could tell you what I thought about it, maybe in another setting, but in hindsight, definitely, it was. I wouldn't probably do it again, even
Right.
though I did do it again.
Right. I can understand that.
but,
I can actually understand that.
But I wouldn't take it back either.
Right.
So
Right.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I would go further, but maybe in a different
I
setting.
understand.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I think for me, maybe similar vein. You know, at the time, and I think back on it often, right? To your point, Pooh, we're 20 some odd years removed at this point, and a lot's changed in the world, and hopefully I've matured some, at least my thinking. You know, at the time, it was very much this is my job, right?
That's what, yeah.
So, and everyone's different. Pooh and I were talking about this earlier before you guys came to lunch, actually. Like, maybe I have a kind of simplistic or dumb way of looking at things, but I'm a soldier. I'm a pawn in the game, right? And that's it. And that's what I got paid to do. Is that to say I shouldn't have my own views, individual views? No, but can't bring them to work, right?
Right,
So
it's your job.
for me, it was not like, should I be here, should I not be here? The answer was, I am here, these are my buddies, and we're going to do our job, and that's it. I didn't think too much about, I think, the macro level, like, picture. I probably did maybe more than some of the other guys, but I think I still have the same view today I did then. And I think even then I recognized that I think we get hung up on how we got there. I think that's always the argument, right? The false pretenses, yada, yada, yada. Yeah, I mean, I think objectively, listen, I didn't sit in the rooms anywhere, but like objectively, I think there were some stretches of the mind of, you know, what was and wasn't going on from a chemical and weapons perspective in Iraq, right? I don't know George W. Bush. I actually loved him as a president. And, you know, was he trying to finish his father's job from 91? I have no idea. Like, do I think it was really Cheney probably in the background running things? Probably. Was there an ulterior motive? Probably. But fun fact, that's since humans have been alive. And so for me, like, as a soldier, it's not my job to contemplate those things when I'm in the capacity of a soldier. When I'm not, and nowadays, you know, I'm no longer in the military, I still think about it. And so the question, I get it a lot, like, do you think we should have done it? Would you do it again? And, you know, funny enough, I think for me it's always come down to this core belief that I have, and we saw it firsthand. And maybe this isn't a justification because he's not the only one in the world that's a bad person, but Saddam was a terrible human being and treated his people terribly. And so for me, it's like I saw the effects on his own population, right? The mass graves that we unearthed while we were there, those aren't made up. Those are real things, right? And so for me, and maybe that's just me trying to make myself feel better about things we did while we were there, but like part of it's like, in some respects, like we got rid of a bad person. Now, it's kind of parlays back into a thread I teetered on earlier was, should we have thought through the plan a little more and had a better idea of the space that we were going to operate in? This is something that, as a nation, we don't do well to begin with. In Afghanistan, I won't go any longer, but you know, it's another place that we failed in this. We didn't understand the people, place, and time that we were going into, right? We didn't understand Iraq as a nation, or non-nation as it was, right? And what are the implications when we show up and remove the bad person? I think the bad person should have been removed. But this goes back to, well, what happens when the guy keeping everything together, not in maybe the best way,
Right.
no longer is doing that, right? And I think that's where things spiraled out of control. And we just didn't
Right.
have a plan, right? And we often don't. And it's easier said than done. And no one pays me to come up with those ideas clearly. And it's complex. That's the other piece. I think that part maybe gets lost too is, yes, can we look back now and say, we were lied to and the reason we went was not there? Sure, maybe. But I don't know, maybe they really did believe there was weapons. Who knows, right? Like, maybe not. Also doesn't matter at this point. And I think we forget that oftentimes situations are complex, right? The intel space is not clean cut. It never is. So trying to make that decision, in theory, one person on the fly, I don't know.
hard.
I think it's easy to look back and judge somebody for something like that, and not be in their shoes. So I don't know. But for me, I think there was a bad person there that did bad things to bad people. And maybe it's just me that helps me lay down at night. And if I had some small role in trying to make the world better in that capacity, and it will be debatable whether I did or not, I'm okay with it.
If nothing, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I want to kind of go piggyback off of what both of them say. Remember when we had those Iraqi nationals come and they cleaned up our area when we were moving to the center part of the base in Anaconda? You guys remember that? We paid those contractors cash money. I don't know if you guys knew, I had a conversation. This is going to answer kind of your question and bounce off of what you just said. But I had a conversation with, there were 4 or 5 men. Do you remember those gentlemen? They were all working hard to get us back into the middle of the base. These are Iraqi nationals that were hired from outside of the base. And they were cleaning up our AO, our area of operation that we were there. So they were tasked to do that. So I asked one of them who seemed to be speaking English pretty well, and he claimed that he was a professor at Baghdad University, and now he's making cash on the side for us. And so I asked him that very same question that you just asked us. I said, what do you think about us being over here? And he never would tell me what he thought. But he did say, you see that gentleman over there, and it was an older guy working his butt off for us. And he said, he likes you being here. I said, why is that? He said, well, his wife was a beautiful woman. And there was an Iraqi soldier that wanted to have sex with her. And they can't have sex in the Iraqi army. So in order to eliminate the problem, they just killed his wife. And so he's like, and he said, that's why he likes you being here. And then he even pointed to another gentleman. He said, you see that guy over there? And both of these guys were working in our camp. He said, he likes you being over here. I said, why is that? He said, well, he was a proponent against Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein was known to torture people tremendously. This guy, he was one of those torturees. And he said what they did to this guy, they would take him to just a one-story building and just knock him off and take him back up and knock him off. And they would do that constantly. And to top it off, they took the copper, like from an electrical, like a high-powered electrical line. There's a bunch of copper wires that's inside that wrapped around with black plastic. He said they took that and stuck it up his anus and pulled it out. And the guy can't use the bathroom correctly. And he said, and that's why we like the American troops over here.
Right.
And that's only 2 stories that I got in a 5-minute reel talking just locals that came on to the base. And I also felt sorry for them too, because they were between a rock and a hard place. Terrorists would come in later, tell me how many steps it took to get from here to that camp so we can go ahead and figure out the time and distance that needs to mortar so we can do what we did to Siggy and everybody else that was in that. So that kind of is more of a context, but
And that's a good insight from somebody local to hear that. It does explain, and just like you were talking about the mass graves, I mean, the fact that y'all are able to put eyes on that and expose it, instead of having to rely on, outside sources, I think in itself had value. So I think that just kind of supports what you're saying.
I remember guarding that guy in the, he was going and cleaning the porta-johns out, going all around Pace, and they put me in there with him, and like, oh, you could be in there, but you can't have you have your weapon, but you can't have it locked and loaded. I'm like, I thought I was supposed to be guarding him. Yeah, but you can't lock and load. I'm like, well, if it's one-on-one, he can easily just grab my, I should be able to, neither here nor there, either way. But, he could speak English fairly well. I got talking to him, and he was like, I think there were a bunch of Christians in Iraq, too. He may have been a Christian, because that's what he told me. He's like, yeah, I'm a Christian, and, things were okay ahead of, before all this. Because if people don't know this a lot of the people who Saddam surrounded himself with were Christian. A lot of his main people, maybe his barber and tailor, all the people that had and the reason that was because Christians won't martyr themselves like a Muslim will. So he felt safer having Christians around him, and so Christians had it okay in Iraq. But he was like, yeah, I was a teacher, went to the University of Missoula or whatever, mathematics degree. Now mathematics is universal; you can use that anywhere. Like him and Purdue could have a hell of a conversation. But he was like, I was like, so why are you out here, cleaning shit? He was like, well, I make $150 a month from doing this from you all, as opposed to making $30 a month teaching math in a school. Mm-hmm. Wow. So, it really is a complex issue. I know everybody likes to make sound bites or whatever about it, but it really is very complex. It goes way beyond anything you can really hash out in an hour and a half podcast. Sure. Or anything like that. You go with the experience you had and the things you did, and so people ask me all the time, we should probably, in hindsight, we probably shouldn't have did it, obviously. So, for me on an ideological level, I'll say, no, probably shouldn't have did it, and I wish it had never happened. But on a personal level, I'm like, yeah, I'm glad it happened. I got to know these guys. I got to have an experience that really opened my eyes up to the world. Maybe my experience over there can prevent something even worse happening in the future. You know what I mean? Everything's laid out for a certain reason. Things happen for a reason. So, I wouldn't be where I'm at. I wouldn't, have the wife I have. I wouldn't have the life I have if I'd have never crossed paths with these assholes. We all had to, we brought something different to the table. Before we get off here, I do want to ask one more story, because we probably brought it up every single show, and I just want to get your perspective on it because you were there that day. But there's this specific day. We got our buddy out there, Nathan Williams, and if nobody knows or hadn't heard the story before, I saved his life. We were out running a mission, and essentially, I kind of jumped in front of him to save him from taking some rounds. Unfortunately, they all missed me when I tried to jump in front of him, and they hit him. But it's not for a lack of trying. So
let's hear the real story.
You were on that mission. So we've told it before. I want to hear your perspective. What do you remember from that day and how everything transpired?
I'll try not to be as long-winded. You guys are going to cut me off eventually here. So funny enough, I probably have the best perspective on that day. So I'll kind of give the long-winded, convinced story. So we're driving along in this big-ass, fucking obscenely long convoy. And next thing you know, so let me back up, give some context. I, unfortunately, was our, platoon's radio man, which fucking amazing, with all my extensive radio training from the Army. So I was responsible basically for putting in secure, call and fills, but make sure that before every mission all the radios talk to each other and they're all in the same secure channel, whatever. So keep that in mind here. And so anyways, we're going along, and somewhere along the way,
one of those $10,000 radios I was telling you about.
A car is shooting at the convoy. And this is where things start to go haywire. Now you got someone in the front of the convoy trying to call it back, but now the comms don't work.
I'm sorry, where were you at in reference to
I'm in the middle of the convoy.
Okay.
You're in the Humvee that day, right?
I'm in a Humvee. Birdman is driving me. This is where the story gets fun. Birdman is driving me, and the convoy got split in half at some point. So, fast forward in the story, someone got shot up here and someone in the back. The convoy gets split. Mm-hmm. And Bird and I are in the middle. And so Bird goes, hey, I'm going to drop you off, and then I'm going to go back to the back half, and you go to the front half. Now, Bird, when he drops me off, Bird has a vehicle that he gets to drive. I got to Flintstone it. So, I just get, kicked out, basically, get the fuck out. So now I'm on foot. I'm not making myself sound like John Wayne here, but like, so I am now on foot, and there's a convoy in front of me and one somewhere behind me, and me. And so off I go running up to the front piece. And so along my travels, I get to the convoy. Fucking hot balls, I remember this. I'm like dying. I get to Billy and William's truck. So let's start the story here. And
This is the rear of the convoy.
No, we're in the front.
Oh, you're in the front.
they're in the front half, but kind of in the back of the front half.
Okay.
But I get to them, and so I don't want to blow anyone's stories up, but I will tell you the true story. In my eyes, at the time, I was hot and sweaty, because I've been running now for like a half a mile. Bert couldn't have got me any closer for some reason.
with his Homer.
I need to get on with him, but I got to ask him some questions. Like, you could have helped me? So anyways, as I find it, Willie P is sitting in the turret like he doesn't know what planet he's on, just spaced out, like behind the Mark 19, just sitting there, like spaced out. Like, I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with him? I find Billy in the middle of the street, Kevlar cocked, holding his saw.
No, it was M16 at the time. I gave my saw to Hurd, so.
Looking not quite as disheveled, but like still a little like, what the fuck is going on? That's how I found him. So now I'm asking Billy, like, what the fuck happened? And he's like, oh, they were shooting at us. And I'm like, okay. And Willie P's like, I felt them going by me. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? I felt the bullets going by me. And I'm like, looking at Billy on the ground, and Willie P just staring at me, blank face. And I'm like, so I get him down. I'm like, dumb fuck, they went into you. So like, now, before we left out in the morning, we didn't have plates. Mm-hmm. So some guys in their, as you call it, podunk unit, craftiness, had figured out how to cut like steel like into squares or rectangles.
Awesome.
Actually, no,
A square
that
is just a rectangle, but whatever.
was the very first mission we ever got plates. But Willie P didn't put the
That's
with the
what
ceramic ones. He left his
like
homemade
steel plate
one in there.
So we get him down, and like I open up his vest because like you can see kind of a hole through it, and I had the plate here. I wish we'd kept it. You could run your finger through it. It was so smooth.
Oh, wow.
Really good job it did. But it was like right where the heart would have been. But it must have changed the trajectory of the round because it like skipped off and like basically cut his nipple, let's be honest. And then you had one go through his boot and like graze his foot. And that's what happened to him. And so now I'm like, he's got some blood or whatever. And so my super medic skills kick in. I don't know if you remember this part.
I definitely remember.
So we're standing in the middle of the street, and I'm like, Billy's like now providing cover so that like maybe we don't get shot again. And I take out, it was like old school, like remember the big ass bandages we had before the Army got smart?
Leftovers from Vietnam.
Oh my God.
Willie P's a little bit thicker, like up top than me, obviously. Everyone is. And he's got this hairy chest. That's the part that's important here. So I'm trying to tie the bandage over the wound, but it like won't stay. Like keeps slipping down. I'm like, I don't know. And so, like G.I. Joe that I am, I like had like with me like 100-mile-an-hour duct tape. And so like I was like, well, this makes sense. And so he's so out of it. I think I asked him like, hey, like I told him like, hey, just so you know, and he doesn't know it. He's like, oh, okay. And so I just like ran duct tape around his entire body to like tape the bandage to his chest. I guess when you guys they flew him out and got somewhere, they had to like cut. I think somebody asked like, who the fuck did this? I wasn't there for that part.
I was. I remember exactly what happened. So we ended up losing 3 guys on that mission. Not us. They were people we were escorting. One was an American contractor. 2 others were third world nationals. We ended up sitting out there in the hot zone for about an hour and a half, or whatever, and finally they decided to get us back to the closest base. I can't remember what the name of that place was. We stopped there a handful of times. They had a really good chow hall really early on.
Was it Cal Zoo?
No, It was like halfway between like Balad and before we made that turn over the river into the desert.
I wasn't. You were attacked in Samara, right? Is that where?
No, I know what you're talking about.
No, it was like south of Tikrit. We got
It'll come to me. But anyways, go ahead.
But whatever base it was, so we get into the base or whatever, and I guess we're just gonna stand fast there for the rest of the night before we're going the rest of the way the next day. Obviously because we had a casualty or whatever. And since I was with Willie P in the truck or whatever, I got him back to the medic facility on post or whatever. And so we get into the medic tent, and he gets back there, and I remember the doctor pulled up his shirt or whatever and said, "Who in the God fuck did this?" Duct tape, god damn, soldier. He said, "I don't even know." Like, he didn't. Willie Pitt at the time was still kind of, he's like, I don't know. He's like, whatever, this is how we roll or whatever. But just the expression from that doctor was priceless. And, and he stayed in there for a bit. And I remember they needed my blood type, so I stayed and gave some blood. And shit, I ended up getting, get back to the tent or whatever. And we decided we were going to go back out to the site to recover trucks or whatever, because there was a couple of people, and at this point in time I hadn't slept in like almost 24 hours, and my adrenaline was just pumping, and we make this exit ramp to get back on the road to go where we're going, and I see this pickup truck full of Iraqis with automatic weapons and stuff, and I came about half an inch away from unloading on that truck, just out of pure adrenaline for the Iraqi police, I guess, or whatever. So I pulled back, but they sent us back out there after the fact. To the hot zone.
It was a wild day, so like, I'll just steal a couple more minutes, just because. And I wish Burr was here. I'm gonna wrap the story. So, the question was about how did I really find Billy? Because that's been a debate for decades now. That's the real reason. So, anyways, but I get them, sort of, whatever. They're fine. Off I go. So I keep going for it. I get all the way up to the front where the American had been shot in the stomach, and. So anyways, this was a Cope's truck. He was the lead gun truck, I guess. Anyways, I came around the front. Now, I'm like fucking dying, right? I come around the front, and as I come around the front of the truck, I'm on the driver's side, all of a sudden, I got like a barrel in my face, and some civilian dude's holding it. I was like, what the? He almost shot me in the face. And it was like some civilian contract driver that like picked up the weapon in the heat of things, because like, whatever, I don't know, lawlessness was happening. I almost got shot in the face by this guy. I was like, whoa, easy guy. And that's when we found out Art was, like bleeding out in his stomach. I only made that point to, like, I almost got shot in the face again. The guy's trying to kill me. But let's fast forward to, like, all the mayhem goes away. Bird picks me back up after everything's done and, like, the convoy's back together. I get back in with Bird, right? And so we start driving, quiet as could be, right? It's kind of one of those days, right? Like, he's got blood on him, which I hadn't asked about yet, but we're going to get to in a minute. I got blood on me. It's kind of a rough day, so, like, we're not saying anything. We're just driving. Like, now, Bird, let me back up. Bird had been in the Marine Corps in the first Gulf War. He was older. He was kind of like, he's real smart, like, kind of like a father figure, right? Like, we were, like, the dumb idiot kids, and, like, Bird was, like, had, like, a family and, like, seen the world and like was like, hey idiots, like let's try to keep together. So we looked up to Bird. At least I did. Right?
Yeah,
like,
we all did.
Yeah.
So that part's important for this because so now we're driving along, quiet as could be. I don't know. I'll make this 5 minutes goes by. Bird starts laughing, and I'm like kind of side-eyeing, like, holy shit, is Bird losing his fucking mind? Please say it ain't so. Fucking Bird loses his mind. Like, what are we gonna do? We're in trouble, man. And Bird is fucking dying laughing. I'm like, eventually I'm like, Birdman, you all right? And he's like, dude, I gotta tell you this. And he starts telling me the story about his half of the day going backwards. And so I'll skip to the part like, it's so fucked up. So, and he should really tell, but like, just because I'm sitting there, like, is Bird losing his fucking mind? The story he tells me is like, one of the guys that got shot in the head, his truck went off the road into the desert. Bird went to get him. And so, like, I don't know, he gets the guy out of the truck and he, like, whatever, he's down on the fucking ground. And so it's like just Bird. And now Bird is driving, telling me the story. Like, we're both, like, got blood all over us. And it's like, and so I'm, like, kind of, like, intently listening, but like, what the fuck is going on? And he's talking about, he's like, yeah, so I tried to grab his feet to pull him and drag him up. And he's like, I'm pulling, and I'm pulling, and the motherfucker won't come. And he goes, I look back, and his head stuck in between the wheel and the wheel arms.
This is the third country national.
Yeah.
That was, yeah.
And it's so fucked up. It's like, I mean, that's not funny, but in the moment, conceptually, Bird is dying laughing, and now I'm dying. I cannot stop laughing, because I'm picturing it, right? And he's like, obviously a little more detail into the story, but I am dying laughing, and that was my day. That was my day.
You have to laugh at things over there.
Oh,
I mean,
sure.
you
You
to keep your sanity, because what a lot of people don't also understand is how many briefings did we have where they would come tell us like, all right, well, we're planning on getting sent home in like a month or a month and a half or so, and that's how it went on until around August and then September.
Oh yeah.
And then finally we were like, all right, we're just going to be here around October. We finally come to the realization we're just going to be here an entire year. Just tell us, let's just be done with it. And that's kind of how it went. Because it's one of the big reasons I stayed after I hurt my knee. I was like, we'll be home in a couple months anyway. I'll be all right. No way we'll be over here for a damn year. No way. Sure as hell later. I know. We need to do this again and get some more people in here, but I got to get Purdue on the mix as well. Y'all remember his last mission south? Didn't you end up getting in the truck with us because yours broke down?
Oh yeah.
Our very last mission, we were headed. We were headed south.
We all have a picture.
Yeah.
We all have a picture together. You should display that on the.
I don't remember which one that is.
It's the picture. I think it was the 5 of us, right? 5 or 6 of us.
Yeah, somewhere.
Yeah.
If you haven't sent it to me,
I've got it. I'll send it to you.
Oh my God, I forgot about you guys dropping
Yes.
the trailer.
Yes.
Yeah. So this was we're heading to Kuwait.
Trying to roll it up.
We're heading to Kuwait. We're done for. And a couple of things on our way home as well, too. Somebody might have suggested that the more ammo you have, the more you've got to count and go through paperwork and BS on the way down the road. So, maybe
I'll let it roll.
Maybe if you want to, when you're out in the middle of the
Let it go.
desert, just let them go.
I'll let it eat.
But you had to time that as well with making sure you had enough on you in case something happened because you're still in a combat zone, and so we made it about halfway. I guess we split the company up into 2 bigger convoys, so third and half a second and first and quartermaster whatever would all go down, and like normal, our trucks that were only brand new a year earlier constantly breaking down on the side of the road. Like if people understood how many hours we spent on the side of the road, like dropping drive shafts to be able to tow trucks back, like how we were not ambushed more often is only a miracle from God itself. But so yeah, we Ziggy's truck I guess breaks down somewhere, so he jumps in the truck with me and Dick do. And so we're letting off rounds everywhere going down the dang road.
I was behind you guys.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I guess old Dick Doo had gotten into some Jim Beam or something that I'd had that, buried in the sand on the way back down the road. I had to get rid of that as well.
Well, so what was he saying when we were coming into the base?
He was demanding.
Oh, that's right.
He was demanding that the Air Force security guard salute him. He said, "I'm your general. Salute me."
I forgot about that.
Oh, I saw the whole thing. That was great. Oh, that was great.
And hanging out the window, and Siggy's just sitting there, just, Christ, I'm almost done with this stuff. And
Okay, so you get into the base.
so
and
we
now
get
what
into
happens?
there, and like I said, this is our last.
I'm right behind him. I'm watching this whole thing happen.
This is our
Unless
last
he gets his
hoorah.
part right.
Yes.
And
Well,
I wanted to go eat at the chow hall because they had a good Air Force chow hall down there. And I was like, I'm not going to eat an MRE my last night here. I'm going to go to the chow hall or whatever. And 2 of these sergeants from another platoon were telling me, no, you ain't going to do that. You ain't doing this, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, I ended up losing my mind on them, calling them the worst names you could possibly think of, including gerbil, which I got from Siggy. Just went off on them. And then finally I was like, fine, F you. And I jumped back in my truck to move it forward. And I guess somebody had unlatched the kingpin. So I move, and I hear doo-doo. And the trailer behind me just smacks the ground. And Siggy, I think, still in the middle, and he was just like... And then Purdue, like a snake, slithers out of the passenger door, sobers up just immediately, and goes back there and starts trying to crank the thing back up.
Sobered up my ass. The irony
So the
of
legs are supposed to go down before you drop this trailer.
Right.
And that didn't happen.
No.
Yeah.
well, because you guys unhooked thinking you were going to drive the truck. Hall and Gerald come over, and then that's when you got into it. we don't need to repeat the conversation, but the irony is you basically telling how fucking stupid they are.
And then
Then saying, fuck it, not thinking that, like, you guys had already unhooked the trailer.
Forgot to lower the landing
Forgot to go
gear.
back, re-hook the kingpin, and just pulled forward, and that bitch hit. Bam.
did they see it?
Oh, everybody did. The whole company did.
Oh,
Not only
my
do you hear
goodness.
it, you see it, but you hear it.
Oh my goodness.
And slithered is the most accurate way of describing
Like
Purdue
a-
getting out of the
like
truck.
a snake.
Yes.
Like his disappointment just covered.
And just drunk as could be.
His disappointment covered his entire body.
Oh, yeah.
And he just right out of the side of the damn truck.
But now he's down on the ground trying to, like, the thing weighs like 15,000 pounds. Like, what are you doing?
You can't pump that up. There's no way.
Yeah, it's making it worse. Like, get off the ground. Like, oh my God. Just. Oh,
How did we
God.
ended up getting that? I don't remember how that got back up.
They had to bring
They are a forklift
forklift,
over
that's
just
right, that's
and
right,
lifted
yeah,
it.
okay.
And the moral of the story is I didn't end up getting my chow hall food. I still had to eat
No.
at MRE that night, unfortunately. And I was kind of a little bit worried, like the entire time over there of all the dumb shit I did. You know, none of it ever really bothered me or anything like that. Except for this time because the two people I cussed out were 2 or 3 ranks higher than me. And my platoon sergeant wasn't around. He was in the convoy behind us. So immediately when he got here, I had to go over to him and be like, I mean, I'm apologize, I shouldn't have lost my cool. And he's like, no, hell with that. They ain't your chain of command. Next time, tell them the same thing if you want to. Tell them to F off. I was like, all right. Easier said than done. So, you know, nothing was said of it. Nothing was done of it. And next day we found ourselves in Kuwait and
Gracious.
spent our last couple weeks together before we all, you know, went different ways.
Split it up.
Yeah. That's probably a good place to end it either way. I can't thank y'all enough for coming and hanging out today because
It's
I've been
been
wanting to do
great.
this for an
Pleasure.
awful long time. I've been begging him to come to the mountain, which you've been there, and now we got to get you down there some weekend. We'll just make it a big event.
come
We'll
on.
we'll get somebody to bring up some food, and
Yep.
we'll get Bird up, Herd up, Adams. We might invite Bateman, pussy. We might invite him out there. So I know he's going to watch us. He's going to read that. Say that multiple times. Now he can see me saying it in the camera. He can visualize me calling him a pussy. So maybe he'll come down there and we can you know, settle our differences mano y mano through political discourse. But yeah, I'm thank y'all so much. It was so great hanging out and
Pleasure.
seeing y'all again today. Like I said, it's been close to 20 years since I've seen Siggy, and every time I get a chance to hang out with Pooh is always a treat. Because he can always vouch for me through my wife and let her reassure her that I'm not getting in any trouble or anything. So
Yeah, he's that beautiful soul you were trying to take away from him earlier. Thank
Well-
y'all, seriously,
Yeah,
for coming
thank
on.
you.
This is
No,
great.
appreciate it.
We
Oh,
enjoyed
it
with
was awesome.
my boot, son,
got you.
with my boot.
I got you.
I'll tell you that story off the air. So anyway, all right, Chip, being libertarian, where can they find you at?
Yep, Facebook, X, and Instagram. Being Libertarian, just look us up. We're a little different in terms of our call sign on each, but you know, just put that in. You'll find us. Look for our logo.
And of course, us, you can find us at any Appalachian Podcast, Twitter or X, Instagram, Facebook, patreon.com/GetOnTap if you want to become a subscriber. $3 a month. It's a dime a day. It's a cup of coffee. You can handle it. Jump on it. Support stuff like this. And also, X, you can subscribe over there for $3 a month too, and get some pretty cool stuff. And like our subscribers here in the near future are going to get to come up there and hang out when we start recording all these shows and hang out, come listen, have some good food. You know, some of the bigger people, TV stars we have and stuff. If you like that show, you know, subscribers will have that opportunity to come up and hang out. So we appreciate everything you're doing. And these two boys, we're going to get them on here very soon down at the cabin. Big event. I want to get like all the guys back together so we can all collaborate and bring our stories all together. And you know,
right.
most of them don't end up too awful well for me, but I'm glad my memory can be jogged of those instances.
Well, when everybody's together, you can get the stories that maybe everybody else has forgotten, and one of you hasn't.
Yeah.
So you can get the good stuff.
That's the perfect part. So for y'all too, appreciate it. Siggy, Pooh, Chip, everybody out there. We thank you, all of our subscribers, and we'll catch you next time.
See y'all.